I'm Angela.
I'm sitting in my peaceful cabin right now, the gentle sound of the lake lapping against the shore outside. The guest room bed is still empty, and I'm looking out at the water, recalling the time when my world was turned upside down by a family member. It all started at a family dinner. I was sitting at the head of the dining room table, watching my brother Leo wave a purchase agreement like he'd won the lottery. Mom, with her eyes shining, repeated, $950,000. As if the money had already made it into our family coffers. Dad, ever the supporter of Leo's big dreams, raised his glass and said, "To Leo." Finally getting his e-commerce startup off the ground. My sister Lily leaned forward, excitement in her voice as she asked, "When do they close?" Leo grinned that cocky grin he'd had since his college days, when he'd charmed his way out of every sticky situation. "Next Friday," he said. "The buyer's designer is already working on the plans for a luxury villa. Permits are in with the county." I took a bite of the steak on my plate, but it tasted like cardboard. That lakeside plot, Lot 678C, was my pride and joy. I'd bought it 5 years ago with the money I'd earned from my digital marketing consultancy. It was 2 acres of prime lakeside land on Lake Silverton. Not a dime of it was from the family inheritance. It was all my hard-earned cash. 3 months prior, I'd let Leo use my office for a video call while I was on a month-long project in Paris. When I got back, he mentioned he'd tidied up my paperwork. I naively thought he'd just stacked the files neatly. Leo kept going, pouring himself more wine. "This land has been sitting empty for ages. It's a waste of resources. This sale will give me enough to hire a top-notch team and launch my app properly." Dad nodded in agreement, saying, "You're right. Property just sitting there isn't doing anyone any good." I'd bought that plot the week after my consultancy went public. I was 30 at the time, and the celebration was just me having a glass of champagne in my hotel room, as no one in the family seemed interested. The next day, I drove to Lake Silverton, walked the property line, and felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. I'd always dreamt of building a small, cozy retreat there for myself. Lily, being a legal assistant, pulled out her tablet. "Can I see the contract?" Leo handed it over with a smug look. She scrolled through it, nodding. "It all looks official. Escrow's open and the title company's handling it." I watched her, hoping she'd notice the red flags. Mom reached over and squeezed Leo's hand, saying, "We're so proud of you, taking the initiative." I'd stopped answering Leo's texts a month ago when he'd asked about liquidating and used assets. I thought he was talking about his old storage unit. Then my phone buzzed. An unknown local number. I excused myself, saying it was a work call. No one even looked up. They were too busy admiring the trophy contract. In the hallway, I answered the phone. A professional-sounding woman said, "Is this Angela Thompson?" I said yes, and she continued, "I'm Sarah Lee from Lakeview Surveying. We're doing the boundary survey for Lot 678C on Lake Silverton. The closing is set for next Friday, but we've found a major discrepancy." My heart sank. She explained that the legal description on the purchase agreement referred to Lot 678C, Block 15, Section 3, but the current deed from the county records listed it as Lot 678C, Block 15, Section 3B. "The property on the contract doesn't exist as described," she said. "And the deed shows it's owned by the Thompson Family Trust, with you as the sole trustee. Recorded in May 2021. I was in shock. I quietly said that I hadn't known about the sale until that night. Sarah then informed me that they had to report this to the title company immediately, as it was a red flag for fraud. The sale couldn't proceed. I hung up and stood there for a while, memories flooding back. I'd paid property taxes for 5 years, a total of $35,000. I'd also spent countless hours on maintenance and erosion control. Last Easter, Leo had asked me for a $20,000 loan for his startup. When I'd said no, he'd called me selfish in front of everyone, and no one in the family had stood up for me. 2 years ago, his first business venture failed. He'd borrowed $60,000 from my parents' savings. They'd said, "Family helps family," and when I'd offered to replenish the money, Dad had brushed me off, saying they didn't need my help. Back in the dining room, I said it was just the surveyor. Leo's eyes widened. When I mentioned the questions about the boundary survey, his face paled. I said, "She'll contact the title company. There's a discrepancy. The contract says Section 3, but the deed shows 3B. Dad tried to downplay it, saying it could be a typo. But I continued, the property is in the family trust, and I'm the sole trustee. Any sale needs my notarized signature and a trust resolution. This contract has none of that." Leo stood up, indignant. "You've ignored this land for years. I'm just trying to make something of it. I was helping you." I kept my voice calm. "You could have asked. Instead, you forged my signature and tried to sell my property." Mom intervened, her voice trembling. "Leo made a mistake. We're family. We can fix this. He'll cancel the sale." But I told her the title company was already investigating. Lily, looking closely at the contract, said, "The notary's stamp looks fishy. Did you really get a notary for a forged signature? That's another felony." Dad then said, "Angela, you can't press charges. He's your brother." I replied, "My brother who tried to steal a nearly $1 million property. He didn't think about the family's values. He just thought about his startup." Just then, I got a text from Sarah. The title company had been contacted, the sale was suspended, and a police report had been filed. A detective would call me on Monday. I showed the text to the table. Leo slumped into his chair. Mom started crying, begging me to let it go. Dad said I'd tear the family apart if I pursued this. But I knew I couldn't let him get away with it. I said, "He's the one who tore the family apart by choosing his greed over honesty." I left that night, driving home through the dark. The lake in the distance looked so peaceful, but inside, I was in turmoil. On Monday, Detective Ryan Miller called. He was thorough and professional. After reviewing the title company report, he said the forgery was clear. I spent hours at the police station, giving my statement and explaining everything. The prosecution was swift. There was so much evidence: forged documents, a paper trail, and the buyer's designer who'd met an Angela Thompson who wasn't me. 6 weeks later, Leo pleaded guilty to wire fraud, forgery, and attempted theft. He got 18 months in a minimum security prison, 5 years of probation, and had to pay back the $95,000 earnest money to the buyer. My parents stopped talking to me after his sentencing. Lily sent me a text saying she understood but couldn't choose sides. I blocked everyone except her. 3 months after the sentencing, I hired an architect to design a 2-bedroom cabin with large windows facing the lake. It took 8 months to build. I visited the site every weekend, watching it rise from the land I'd fought to protect. The cabin was finished in November. I moved in on a sunny Saturday. There was no house, warming party, no family celebration. Just me, my furniture, and the beautiful view that I'd earned through a battle with my own family. Now, as I sit here, I sometimes think about all the years I'd been the reliable one, the one whose success was never truly celebrated. But I don't regret standing up for myself. The cabin is my haven, and the lake is a constant reminder that I fought for what was mine.